Welcome everyone, it's Sherry Carroll for SimonsSaysStamp.com with my latest art journal page that I'm creating in my circle journal. So here are some of the pages that I've already created, and I have them hooked on to the Simon Says Stamp ring clip. For today's page, I'm starting with the Ranger watercolor cardstock, and I'm using the smooth side, and I'm also using the die set from the Tim Holtz From the Vault Fright Night. For my journal pages, I use the Simon Says Stamp nested dies in the 4-inch size, but I'm going to wait to cut this until I'm done with my treatments. But I'm also going to cut a small circle for my moon to use as a mask. I'll set my die onto my paper just so that I have a guide to where I want to place my moon shape. And I'm going to add a little bit of adhesive to the back of this moon since I'll be using some distress stains and sprays, and so I want everything to hold in place and that moon not to move while I'm spraying. Before I get going with my color, I'm going to spritz this a little bit with my mini mister, and this has just a really nice fine mist, and I don't want to really wet the paper, but I just want to get it moist. Then I'll start with Black Soot Distress Spray Stain, and I'm going to put this to the top of the moon, and I'm just going to go side to side and add some color. Next, I'll go in with some Villainous Potion, and again, I'll spray from side to side to add that color. And then finally, I'll go in with some Wilted Violet towards the bottom, and I'll get a nice blend of color between those three. And now I'll remove my moon mask, and you can see how that looks with all that wet stain. And I'll use the low setting of my heat tool until I dry it completely. As the stain dries into the paper, it lightens a little bit, so I'm going to go back over with my spray stains and just increase that intensity of the color a little bit. So once again, with a little bit of water, I'm just going to spray that on to moisten that paper, and then I can go in with the same colors that I used before. I'll start with some Villainous Potion in the center, Wilted Violet at the bottom, and the Black Soot at the top. And once again, I'll dry this with the low setting of my heat tool until it's completely dry. And for the spooky moon technique, I'm going to hold this paper down and I'm going to spritz this with my mini mister. And you can see where the ink starts to roll in towards the center of that moon. This is a Stacy Hutchison technique that I learned a couple years back, and it's something that I don't want to forget about because it's super cool. Once my paper was dry, I decided to go back in with some of the Spritz from Tim Holtz, and I have the Wilted Violet, and I'm just going to unscrew the cap and use the applicator tip to add some splatters. And once I've dried that, I'm going to go back in with some peeled paint Spritz, and I'm going to do the same where I'm going to unscrew the cap and start tapping on some of that stain. I always love a little green with my purple, and for Halloween it's just perfect. Here's how my background is looking at this point. So I have that ink that has pulled in towards the moon, and I also have that nice sparkle from those Tim Holtz spritzes. And now it's time to die cut this with my 4-inch circle to match my other journal page sizes for my book. There are a couple branches in the Fright Night die set, and I've cut those from the black from the Tim Holtz metallic KRAFT cardstock. To adhere these down, I'm using the Simon Says Stamp KRAFT tacky glue, and I'm just adding a fine line of some glue. Some of this branch is going to hang off to the side, so I'm not going completely to the end. And I like to blot this off with some paper towel so that I don't have any of the glue oozing out behind that branch. And now I want to place this over the moon so we can see some of those creepy branches coming from the side. And I'll add a second branch coming from the left side so I can have some balance on my page. Next, I'm using the Simon Says Stamp black glitter cardstock, and I'm going to cut this row of tombstones, but I want it to go off the edge so I have a little bit more margin. So I'm going to set this in my die cut sandwich so that that edge won't quite cut from the bottom. And now that I have that die cut, I'll just remove the die, and I can snip off the sides since it didn't cut the bottom, but it cut all those tombstones from the top. And now I have more room to work with on my circular shape. I'll be gluing this down with some Simon Says Stamp KRAFT Tacky Glue, and I'm going to add a little bit of extra towards the bottom since I'm not quite sure where this is going to hit on my circle die cut. And with plenty of room to work with, I can make sure that I center this onto my page, and then I can press this down and let that glue dry. And once everything is dry, I can go back in with my scissors and I can trim around that bottom and also clip off the sides of those tree branches. I've die cut one of the clouds from the Tim Holtz metallic craft cardstock in the silver color, and I'll just place that right on top of the moon. And I'll pick this up for you so you can see how all those different things shine and have different textures. And I thought I'd do something a little bit different for the ghost, so I have die cut him from the Simon Says Stamp vellum, and he will sit on my page and we'll be able to see a little bit of that color from behind. To glue him down, I'm going to use the Simon Says Stamp KRAFT Tacky Glue, and I'm just going to add little tiny dots of glue to the back side. And now I can glue him in place right over those branches. The next thing I want to do is to add one of my sentiment strips, and this is the Simon Says Stamp journal strips, and I'm just adding some glue to the back. And this one says make art because I want to remember this technique for future use. So I'm just going to center that towards the bottom of this page. And finally, it's time to add some dazzling gems, and I'm going to put some glue right in one spot that kind of shows the glue from the back, and I can just hide that with one of my little tiny gems. I'm using the place and score tool just to flip that over and can set that right down into the glue. And then I can continue adding some more glue and gemstones to this background. Here's how my finished page looks. If you ever have trouble with spray stains, doing the blending the way you want, be sure to spritz your paper a little bit with some water before you do your spraying. And I absolutely adore how this moon looks, and I love that Stacy Hitchinson created this technique, and I can use it over and over again with all those colors coming in. Here's also a look at all the pages that I've done so far this year. There's quite a variety of techniques and themes that I've done. Super fun to do. I hope you've enjoyed this tutorial on how to do the spooky moon technique. I do have my links below for my supplies and also for our blog post for more information. And as always, thanks so much for watching.
Hi there, I'm Heidi, Simon's mama and founder at simonsaysstamp.com. Thank you so much for watching our video. If you like what you just saw, be sure to press the thumbs up and subscribe to see more great content.